Okay, so what do you do in your role as a petroleum engineer?
That's a wonderful question. So, as a petroleum engineer, my job is to essentially get oil and gas out of the ground in a safe and efficient manner for all the people working on the sites, as well as to make sure that as we're getting the oil and gas out, we have also protected the integrity of the formations, the water zones, and things like that, so that it's safe for the public as well.
And so, did you plan on becoming a petroleum engineer from your childhood?
Actually, yes, I did.
Oh,
Um, my dad works in the oil and gas industry, and he is not an engineer. So when I was about y'all's age, I would go to work with him, and he had to work really hard. It was a lot of hard days. He was out of town a lot and things like that. And he was around a lot of engineers as well. Um, and they were involved on the same projects, but the engineers didn't have to travel or be on site near as much. So that gave me the perspective and the passion for the oil and gas industry, and then the desire to go into engineering on that side.
so what are the most important or critical skills to becoming a petroleum engineer?
Probably the most critical skills to becoming a petroleum engineer are definitely understanding math, chemistry, and physics, and materials and strengths and things like that. Um, one of the things I think is the funnest part of being a petroleum engineer, and I guess it's important as well, is um, in a way, you have to have a good imagination. And for an engineer to say you have to have an imagination, that's probably counterintuitive. Um, but I can't touch or see everything that's going on with the projects that I'm working on. We might drill an oil well and it'll be 2 miles deep and another 2 miles sideways. It'll have kind of an L shape. And we have to be able to analyze graphs and pictures and data really quickly to understand what's happening downhole without actually being able to see it.
I see. And so, what are some expectations that companies have for being a petroleum engineer?
So, an expectation for being a petroleum engineer is a safety mindset of wanting to keep everybody safe as well as designing the oil wells with safety factors in mind so that they don't fail. Um, Another factor that companies like is a strong work ethic, a strong work ethic, and an understanding of the environment. It and an understanding of the field environment. And the reason I say that is just as much as we can't see what's going on down hole, many times we have field employees and office employees, and it's a lot of communication back and forth, telephone calls and things like that. And the ability to communicate well, have a safety mindset, and be able to understand what's going on downhole and a strong work ethic go a really long way.
Yeah. And so, how much stress comes with being a petroleum engineer, and how do you personally deal with it?
That's a really good question. Now, getting to be a petroleum engineer, the stress can be fairly high too, because engineering classes in college are not easy. Um, so there is some stress about that, but it's definitely well worth it. The other thing is when I'm leading an operation and I have people working in the field, they're working, there are people on location 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, because there's certain things we do that can't stop. And if there are issues, we may get random phone calls all through the night. That becomes fairly stressful, is trying to manage things no matter what time of day they call. Um, and one of the ways I deal with that is with community. I enjoy working in a team. So sometimes just bouncing the ideas off of other people, as well as sharing stories with others, helps solve problems easier. Another good way of dealing with that stress is exercise. I tend to enjoy going for a good walk or a run every once in a while, and that helps a lot deal with the stress.
And so I know that you talked a little bit about the teams you work with, but could you provide a little bit more information about that?
Yeah. So the teams I work with kind of run the gamut. The I'm more on the operational side of engineering. So every team that I've worked with or had reporting to me at some point has worked in the field. So I tend to be a bridge between the field and the office. And I really love that role because growing up in the field with my dad, I understood what it took to get the job done. And then going to school with the technical degree, I'm working with the other engineers and the management to outline what our strategy is for the company or for that given well or field. So not only do we have a diverse group of um, roles in the team, from a lease operator to a field foreman, an engineer, managers, and CEOs and executives. In the technical side of the realm, we also have the office team that includes various types of petroleum engineers, geologists, accountants, and a land group. And getting to work with all the different disciplines is really exciting too. So there's never a day, there's never a day that repeats itself. It's always a new challenge.
So, what kind of tools do you use while working as a petroleum engineer?
The computer's a big one here lately. A lot of Excel. Spotfire is a dashboard that can handle a lot of data and plot things very quickly that can be easy to see. Email, text messages, phone calls, tends to be a lot of instruction and dialogue back and forth with the field that happens over um, text messages. And I might be a little old school compared to some petroleum engineers nowadays, but I love having a whiteboard, a great big whiteboard that you would see in school, all the different colors of markers you can imagine, because I like to process out and figure problems out while I'm standing up and while I'm writing. So sometimes by jotting and drawing pictures and things like that, I am able to put together that downhole picture a little better. Um, so that helps. PowerPoint is another, um, sharing the data, sharing it with supervisors and leadership tends to be a big deal in meetings. So PowerPoint tends to be a big tool that's used as well as some frac models and reservoir simulation models. So there's a lot of computer programming and data crunching goes into being a petroleum engineer.
Right. And I know that you talked a little bit about how you may sometimes get phone calls in the night. So is there really a set number of hours you might have to work in a day?
Nope.
Sure.
Most mornings, I would work a schedule like 7 to 5 would be a typical day, Monday through Friday. Um, we like to start fairly early in the morning so that if there's instruction or decisions that we need to relay to the field, that they have time to put those actions into place. Um, so a typical day would be probably 7 to 5. And then if there's operational challenges or things that come up at night, those would just be additional to the regular day.
And so you talked a little bit about it, but do you have to commute to work every day?
Not as much. I've worked for some companies that I have to commute into Dallas every day. I live outside of Dallas, so it's about 35 miles to that office. And I've worked with other companies where we come into the office for meetings, but then everything that else is either through Zoom or Teams or a typical phone call. The last role I was in, I was an operations leader, and I was in stationed out of Dallas, Texas. The accounting team that reported to me was in Oklahoma City. Our field operations and all of our oil wells were near Midland, Texas. And I had a couple engineers working for me that were from Bangalore, India. So our morning conference calls would include people from all over the southern region of the United States and India. So in some instances, driving to the office wouldn't have been helpful because we weren't even in the same office.
Yeah, right. And so uh you said that you worked with a team, and so how do you maintain a healthy work-life balance?
So part of that is taking the times when the phone's not ringing to really focus on the kids, the family. I love to volunteer at church. We have a men's group and a couple service groups in our church that I like to involve in. So get to going with those. I met y'all at a 4-H event. So one of the things that I'm active in is I'm a robotics coach for our 4-H local county. We've got about 18 kids in that group. So teaching them how to program and code and build or helping them learn faster is a good thing. One of the things is really turning the computer off and the phone off when it's not critical is a big one.
So, what kind of educational background or college degree do you need to have to get a good job as a petroleum engineer?
That's a great question. To get a job as a petroleum engineer, you do have to have an engineering degree, and most of the time that's going to come from one of the bigger type schools. In Texas, those are Texas A&M, the University of Texas, Texas Tech. Trying to think of who else offers petroleum degrees. Oklahoma. State, Colorado School of Mines, MIT. Those are some various schools that offer petroleum degrees. So to be a petroleum engineer, you do need a 4-year engineering degree from one of the schools.
And can you talk a little bit about how you became a petroleum engineer?
It was a long process and it wasn't necessarily easy. Um, I grew up really enjoying the oil field and the oil and gas wells. So going to school to be an engineer was kind of the natural next step. I was fortunate enough to be in the top 10% of my high school graduating class. So that allowed me some more opportunities to get into school, and it made getting into Texas A&M a little easier, I believe. Um, but it did not make the math and science classes at A&M any easier at all. I had a hard time, and I was blessed that while I was going to A&M, I was working a job in the oil and gas industry. And I had a manager that reminded me that only the first job out of college is really going to look at the grades. Everybody else is going to look at the fact that you have the degree and the work you put behind it. I have a very strong, probably the two characteristics that carry me through the most are a strong work ethic and persistence. I wouldn't give up. Like even no matter what odds I was faced, I wouldn't give up. I did struggle to pass some of my classes in college after being a straight A student in high school. College classes were extremely difficult for me. But it was what I wanted to do. So I had enough grit and persistence still in me to push through and finish out my degree there.
And so if someone were considering college, all of the colleges you said, what kind of cost would it take?
I would I would bet nowadays it's probably a 40 to $50,000 um college degree. M Most colleges would list it as a 4-year degree, but most engineers I know it took 5 years to finish it. Um, which is another great reason to get your record books in and fill out as many scholarship applications as you can to help offset those expenses.
And what possible career paths would there be if you would succeed in the role of operations manager?
So operations manager is a fun opportunity because as that role continues to grow, I'm hoping that I can carry the leadership skills and the management tools I've learned, not only the engineering skills, but also the leadership skills into similar industries.
Oh.
Um, I don't know. There's various industries out there. I'm in the process of exploring that a little bit. One opportunity is working with a good finance group that is able to raise capital money to explore and drill new wells to where there may be a good geologist and money person available, and they just need an operations person to help develop the field. And pairing with those different people is where some of the greatest successes could come in.
So I remember you talking a little bit about what you enjoy in this job, but could you tell us more about what do you enjoy in this job and what keeps you motivated?
Yes. So, what I enjoy most about this job is working with the people, working with the various groups, the growth of growing up in the field, but then also having the technical degree and being able to work close in the office. I can very well um, help translate between the field and the office on different jobs or projects or things like that we're doing. And that is one of my favorite parts about the job. The other is if I have a group of young engineers or individuals working with me, I enjoy helping them learn and develop so that they become the absolute best engineer or the best accountant or best landman or whatever they can, to help them be the absolute best they can. I really enjoy seeing other people's careers thrive and having a hand in helping do that.
So, while talking about this, that means that you must have showed some leadership. So, how would you describe your leadership or management style?
I would describe it more as a servant leadership style, a leadership style that is essentially there to serve others on my team, to help lift them up, and to guide them through different things. I like to get to know the teams I've worked with really well. I have very similar to this conversation. I will have what's called a one-on-one meeting with members on my team every week. And that gives us 30 or 40 minutes every week to just sit down and focus on what are the things just that person and I need to work with and work on. Um, Building that relationship and that trust goes a long way, especially with the in the middle of the night phone calls that come up. If you have the trust built and the understanding of who you have on your team, knowing their strengths, knowing their weaknesses, then when that call comes in at the middle of the night, you're better able to assess um, the situation and know what additional resources may need may be needed in the field.
And so, what common mistakes do you see people making when they're trying to enter this field?
Probably one of the biggest mistakes is trying to rush through their early career development time in the field. So most petroleum engineering companies are going to require a new engineer coming out of college to spend a good amount of time in the field because that's where you really get to see everything that goes in the ground. You you get to piece together the technology, the electronics, the downhole equipment that goes in the well. All of that comes together in the field. So the more time you can spend in the field and see it, observe it, understand how it works, understand all the field calculations, when their jobs grow and progress into the office, the better the understanding they will have when they get in the office of what's happening in the field.
And so is there some advice that you might give to those people who are maybe entering this field?
The advice I would give to those entering this field now is be prepared to work hard. The rewards are amazing. The job satisfaction, the challenges that we face, they're big, but be willing to work hard and give it your all.
And so, lastly, what is the typical salary range for a petroleum engineer?
That's a fair question. A salary range for a petroleum engineer coming out of school may be anywhere from probably 120 to $150,000 a year for salary. As they grow in their career, that will definitely grow. And many companies provide, apologize, I have a clock behind me. Many companies will provide additional bonuses every year, as well as stock opportunities, in order to have some ownership in the company you're working for.
Uh, And so, yes, thank you so much for having this interview with us today. That's it.
You're welcome. And I hope y'all have a great day. And I am very impressed on y'all's skills on interviewing as well as just reaching out and starting the conversations.
Okay. Thank you
So
so